Welcome to Worldview Matters, discussing controversial issues, discerning current events, defending biblical Christianity. No topic off limits. And now, here's your host, David Fiorazzo.
Hello, friends. Very important topic today with our friend John Haller. Over on one of his prophecy updates at Fellowship Bible Chapel on YouTube, it says, censorship is rising all over the globe, and it has become a clear and present danger. When any governing body is the sole determinant of what is truth, we have a major problem in our country. We've talked about this for many, many years. Those of us who have been trying to warn people, especially the body of Christ, what's coming and what's here now in America. So we're going to talk about gaslighting, censorship, and really communist policy in America. It's what's happening. We have to recognize it and know how to respond. So let's bring in our friend, John Haller. Brother, good to see you. Welcome back to the Midwest.
Hi, David. Good to be back, I think.
Yeah, so
it's certainly cooler here. It's only 90 today.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, so tell us briefly about your California trip. I caught part of the video, the debate you guys did. You and Tom Hughes, you were talking about the actual debate, not that you guys did a debate. But tell us about your California trip, a couple highlights, and then we'll get into the topics.
So I participated in a conference put on by Tip of the Spear, which is Brandon Holthouse's Rock Harbor Church's ministry. Tom Hughes, myself, Bill Salas, Alex Newman, Bill Koenig, Patrick Wood.
Troublemakers.
All a bunch of people who are, if we weren't on a list, we probably are now. And Brandon, of course. So It was in Woodland Hills, California last weekend. We had a few hundred live, and I'm told over 3,000 people on live stream. So I think it was good. But Woodland Hills, as you know, David, from having lived out there, Woodland Hills is one of the hottest places in the whole valley. When I drove up through Pasadena, across the 405, through Hollywood, and across the 405 into Woodland Hills, my car temperature gauge for about 40 minutes at 120 degrees.
120.
120. That's hot. And a lot of people out there don't have any air conditioning. The big story too at Rancho Palos Verdes, which is a pretty upscale neighborhood. That's where Trump National Golf Club is. They've had to evacuate a couple of their homes. They just told people we won't be giving you power, water, or sewer because they're having underground landslides. So it's affecting the stability of parts of that peninsula. So those are very, very expensive homes up there.
Yep.
I would say probably average 2 million or more. So there's a lot of interesting things, but it was hot all over the area. I was down in Temecula for a few days, went out to San Jacinto with Tom Hughes Sunday night at 412 Church in Temecula. And we had a good time. We spoke. We talked about just a whole bunch of different issues Sunday night, and then Monday, Bill Salas, and I did about an hour and a half talking about issues in the Middle East. So you can get those at Hope for Our Times.
Yep.
And I think you can go to tipofthespear.org to pick up the live stream if you want to do that. The recordings.
I saw on your Facebook page, you posted that, and I was able to click on that and watch you guys live. So John, if George Orwell were alive, would he be shocked, or would he say, I tried to warn you? That's what was in your prophecy update. And I want to just share this real quick from an article called Harris Liberal Record is Hiding in Plain Sight, Washington Times. So sounding like a moderate in the debate, Kamala Harris accused Donald Trump of supporting an agenda that would raise prices and hurt workers. And you're going, wait a minute, did I hear that right? She's accusing him of having his policies. So John, help us. There's gaslighting going on. There's ignorance in the electorate, and we're in a lot of trouble. Help us make sense out of this.
I do think the president, former President Trump, didn't do a great job. Part of that was, when you're, I don't, he kind of got a little bit off track And a lot of people said, he looked defensive because that's not a good look, and you don't want to do that. But it's understandable because the debate was really 3-on-1. They never fact checked anything that Kamala Harris said.
Nope.
They fact checked everything that Trump did. And when he tried to defend himself, they cut him off, said, well, we don't really have time to talk about that. We have to move on to the next subject. And so you could see his frustration growing throughout the debate. But she sounded somewhere to the right of Ronald Reagan throughout the course of that, except when they really drilled down on her on abortion.
Yeah, and you're thinking, how do people believe this? Knowing her, we will know them by their fruit, and in this case, by their policies and their background for those paying attention. How do people believe what she was saying? It's just astounding to me.
Well, I mean, and then she just said, well, we're going to fix all the problems that guess what? The administration that I'm part of caused by doing what my opponent has said we should have done and did, back in between 2016 and 2020.
Yeah.
I'll just tell you, David, there's a whole bunch of issues that come out of this. She has been I think I know the way to go with this on the first of the many issues raised by this debate and the presidential race. By the way, it's very close.
Oh yeah.
I maybe it's because I was a lawyer and was always looking for things people had done wrong. I am a little bit pessimistic about the ultimate result.
Yeah.
Because a lot of this relates to immigration. These immigrants are being bussed all over the country, many times into cities, towns, villages, states, counties that would support President Trump. So there's a local example. In Springfield, Ohio, it's a town of about a city of about 50,000 people. They have about 20,000 Haitian immigrants that have come in over the last year and a half. It's straining the local services. People are saying, and people are saying, posting that, they go into stores and they just eat food as they're going through the store. There's allegations that family pets have disappeared and are being taken by them. There was one story that they had gone after the geese or ducks at a local park. Which sometimes it's like, I don't know, maybe they're doing a service because the geese, I mean, I play golf and what the geese leave behind, it's like a large dog, you know what I mean? So it makes it a little bit, I'm not, you don't want to slip on that, I guess, and fall down on it.
Okay. Thanks for painting that picture for us.
Okay. I think you know where I'm going.
Yes.
But, and then there's been some citizen journalists that have gone, I mean, well, first of all, there's people that go to the city council meeting and complain, and they just get completely shut down or ignored. So then there's citizen journalists have come in and they're saying they're investigating how are all these people getting driver's licenses because they can't read English. And it appears that they go to the license bureau and they're given an interpreter who really effectively answers the questions for them. So there's been some litigation. There's even I think there's a criminal case against one guy who struck and killed a family in a car and killed a few people.
Wow.
It's totally changing the town. So we know this is J.D. Vance has brought it up. Donald Trump has brought it up. So we know this is going to be an issue in the debate.
But when they bring it up, they accuse us, or they accuse Republicans of lying or exaggerating.
They accuse the Republicans of gaslighting them on this particular issue. And the thing you need to remember about the left, they will always be guilty of what they accuse you of.
Yes.
So they're accusing Trump and Vance of lying. But this was pretty egregious, and it's not surprising given what I view as a lack of character on the part of Governor DeWine, the governor of Ohio. Who's actually from Cedarville, where Cedarville University is located. He came out and did a news conference a few hours before the debate, and he said, "We don't understand why there's this problem. These stories are made up. It just comes from Facebook posts. Nobody's seen anything like this. It's not that bad." But then The very next day, there's a report at NPR, which is hardly a right-wing news outlet, National Public Radio, saying that Michael DeWine is sending millions of dollars and many troopers into Springfield to help out with the situation. Oh, I thought there wasn't a situation. So it's just totally out of control. It's very frustrating. So they're gaslighting us on this, on a huge gaslighting those of us. Not that we're opposed to immigrants or anything like that, okay? But there's a way that they're going about it that's completely tearing apart the fabric of society. Out in Colorado, they're finding that these left-wing NGOs, funded by the city of Denver and in some cases the federal government, so these organizations get money from the government. They're bringing in these, well, in the case of Colorado, it's Venezuelans, and their gangs, their criminal gangs. They're emptying out their jails. And so when Kamala Harris, Comrade Kamala Harris, tells us that crime is down in the countries where the immigrants are coming from, it's because they've sent the criminals there. It reminds me of that article. I don't know if you remember the article from a few years back in the Los Angeles Times. In face of rising prison populations, experts are confused by the falling crime rate. Oh, so we're putting the prisoners, the criminals in prison, and the experts can't figure out why the crime rate is falling. That was an actual article in the New York Times. You know, sometimes I wonder, what would Rush Limbaugh be? He would probably stroke out 3 times a week if he was still alive and watching this garbage. It's pretty unbelievable.
Yeah, let me ask you another thing along the lines of immigration. Kamala Harris' voting record in the Senate before she was VP was always supporting illegal immigration, but now finally it's more voters are concerned about it. But she says now in the debate, I believe she said she pledges to resolve the problem if elected president. So again, John, you said this is part of the problem that they have done nothing about, and in fact even made worse. But she's campaigning to help fix the problem. So how can people believe it's just, I mean, even Taylor Swift, you know, people like that, they're going, oh yeah, Kamala Harris, they're all in for the left and their policies. But so they're not reasoning, they're not following the logic. They're just either believing the hype or the talking points. And that's what brings us to a very dangerous place, don't you think?
Well, I mean, she was referred to by herself and the President Biden. By the way, I haven't seen him on a milk carton yet, but I suppose he's still the president. I just never understood, if he can't run for president, how can he run the presidency?
Oh, he's been on vacation, so that's
another. Yeah, well, but somebody's running this thing into the ground, and so what they do is they're saying immigration is down. But they're only looking at a little slice of immigration. So It's sort of like the sleight of hand, like the magician. We'll look over here and see what's going on. All the while, there's all this activity over here that shows that it's just as bad. Look, as I said, I'm sympathetic to people in Haiti, that it's a horrible country. It's open sewers. I mean, we've seen pictures of it. We see the slavery, the gangs. There's no government. I get why people want to live here, but I don't know that we have standards that we want people to meet when they come here in terms of education, abilities, and that sort of thing. I mean, I'll give you an example from my own life. This is 20 years ago. We have probably 150, 200,000 Somalian immigrants here in Columbus. About half as many as they have in the Twin Cities up in Minnesota. But I have to get a cab from the airport. I'd flown out on my client's jet. So I had to go back to the Ohio State airport where my car was. So I get this guy, and I'm not being prejudiced or anything. I know he's a Somalian. I mean, you know, you can tell by the facial features and that type of thing. So we get in the car, it's winter. and the window starts to fog up. And I say, I'm not sure exactly how I said it, dude, you need to turn on the defroster or we're going to have a crash. So he starts playing with the buttons on the radio. And it was pretty clear to me that he had come from a place where they never used a defroster because he came from a desert tropical environment like Somalia.
Right.
And I finally told him, I said, listen, you're going to get this operating in the next 10 seconds, or I'm telling you to stop the car. I'm going to pull you out of the driver's seat and I'll drive. And I may leave you behind and tell you where you can get the car at the destination. I mean, I was pretty upset because you could not see anything. And he's driving down the freeway at 60 miles an hour.
Oh my goodness.
So, I mean, that's the practical thing. And that's what's happening in Springfield on, I don't know how big a scale. All I know is it's up. And how do you get registered to vote? You show a driver's license. Okay, you don't. That's all you need. And we were supposed to only have citizens vote in our elections, I thought. So this is going to be a big problem. And understand, Springfield, Ohio, is probably the biggest county that would support President Trump in terms of percentage in the state of Ohio, and it's being upended. And I assume that these immigrants are going to vote for the people that brought them in. But that's an assumption. I don't have any proof of that, of course.
Yeah.
But they don't either. But for them to sit on the air and in the debate and say that the problem that's unfolding right under your nose is not a problem, is a big problem.
Yeah. And I hope more and more people wake up. We've got to take a brief pause with John Haller. When we come back, we'll talk about some of the lies that the Democrat moderators from ABC just let slide during that debate. We'll be right back on Worldview Matters.
Introducing Patriot Mobile, the wireless carrier that stands with you. We are committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream.
Get free activation now with promo code DAVID. If you know somebody that might be interested in sponsoring Worldview Matters, get an email to our producer, worldviewmatters@fpeusa.org. The website, of course, worldviewmatters.tv. John Haller, our guest today. Check out his prophecy updates at Fellowship Bible Chapel on YouTube. You can also connect with him on Facebook. And John, let's talk about some of the things. I mean, there's so many other things we wanted to talk about: Israel and the war, what's happening in the Middle East. I think for our purposes here, with an election so close and people just really not knowing the facts and the truth, and there's a lot of confusion going on with all the gaslighting, let's talk about a few of the lies. One of the big ones was Kamala Harris' denial about late-term abortion, of what the Democrats support, and that abortions don't happen after birth. And, we're talking about a botched abortion where the Democrat policy is to let the baby die instead of giving a baby care if they're born through a botched abortion. There's things like that they don't even recognize, they don't even talk about. But these are lies, and the moderators didn't address them. So let's talk about that. One more thing, the pro-life protections prevent miscarriage care. There's a lot of other things. But John, just that subject, Ohio voted a certain way last year, I think, on this issue.
Well, so Trump, by the way, so it's been disappointing to a lot of people on the pro-life side of the issue that Trump seems to have backed off on the abortion issue. And many Republicans have sort of fled from the issue because they don't see it as a winning issue in this election. And I understand that. Okay. But I also understand people being upset about that, about the way the Republicans are acting. But we have to go back and we have to look at this historically. I started law school in the fall of 1977, which was not less than 5 years after Roe versus Wade had taken effect. My left-wing constitutional law professor, my first year of law school, We talked a lot about Roe versus Wade, and he thought it was a terrible decision. So eventually that gets overturned, but it only gets overturned after 50 years of people being indoctrinated that Roe versus Wade should be the law of the land. It was made up. It was judicial legislation. It was a horrible decision, but we had to live with it. But the problem is that and nobody, the Supreme Court didn't come out and say abortion is over. Abortion, they just said it goes back to the states where it belongs.
Yeah.
Now, some people are trying to make it a federal issue and pressing the former president on whether he would veto the bill. And by the way, he said, I've never talked about that with J.D. Vance, and J.D. Vance said Trump probably would veto the bill. So maybe they haven't communicated on the issue. That's entirely possible.
Yeah.
But it's not a good look. But in Ohio, we had a couple of abortion elections. And to be honest with you, I don't remember which way it was, but they keep the right to life people tried to put something in place, and it got defeated. Let's say by a 53-47 margin. It might have even been closer than that. Then the pro-abortion people came in and they put forth a constitutional amendment, essentially trying to overturn some of the laws enacted by the legislature. And in my county, which is a Republican, heavily has historically been one of the bellwether Republican counties, that legislation last year, the proposed amendment by the pro-abortion people passed by a 2-1 margin in my county.
Yeah.
And so, these, I mean, our church is in this county, and it's troubling, but it's understandable because you don't overturn or overrule 50 years of indoctrination in a couple of years, or a Supreme Court decision. And so the media and everybody's been hounding the Republicans on this ever since.
Let me ask you this, John. We only have 5 minutes left. Why do we keep doing these debates? That's question one. Knowing that it's always, the moderators against the Republican candidate, and so it was really unfair. But I mean, even starting with right out of the gate, are Americans better off today than they were 4 years ago? Kamala Harris didn't even answer the question. She started talking about being raised as a middle-class kid. She's talked for minutes about her plans and ignored the question completely. And they didn't press her on it. So that's how we knew it was going to be bad right out of the gate. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I was watching this with some friends, and we're sort of I'm trying to do something else, but eventually we were all yelling at the TV that she's not answering the question. And even when she's fact checked by NPR on inflation and that type of thing, they take the labor statistics, which are completely fake and made up. I can't remember what it was I bought recently, but I thought, goodness. Well, I mean, you go to a fast food restaurant like Five Guys. It's like, we went to a taco place, my friend and I. He got a burrito, some chips, and a drink. It was $29.
Oh my goodness.
In California.
Oh, California. That's part of the problem.
I know, but I saw the bill come up, and I thought, I better check the prices on the screen because I have some explaining to do when I get home. And they say, inflation's leveling off. It's not leveling off. Go and look at what the price of meat and that type of thing is. People can't afford it. But
why does nobody address that? That affects a lot of Americans. Nobody addresses the change in gas and groceries from 4 years ago.
During the Trump administration, I was actually in Springfield, Ohio one day, and with my 10-cent a gallon discount, I paid 98 cents for a gallon of regular gas.
I remember I paid 95 several years ago. Yeah.
I know. And when I was in California the other day, it was $4.84 for a gallon of regular.
Okay.
So now Costco was $3.80 or something like that. Yeah. But it's changed dramatically, and nobody's addressing this. Well, I think it's being addressed, but it's not getting any traction in the media. Surprise, surprise. It's like so they asked the Springfield police, well, are Haitians eating family pets? And they say, well, it's not something that's on our radar. Now, think about that. It's not on their radar. You know why? Because they have a whole bunch of other crime problems because of this. Whether somebody eats somebody's cat or dog isn't that important to the police. They're bringing in state troopers to help out on the issue, even though our governor says it's not a problem, but turns around the next day and sends state troopers in there. So it's just like the crime problem, well, crime's down. Well, crime is down because you're not prosecuting the people that did it. I saw the great Victor Davis Hanson. I mean, I think if you want to follow people like Victor Davis Hanson and Douglas Murray and Carolyn Glick, you'll get a lot smarter.
Yeah.
But Victor Davis Hanson was interviewed the other day, and he said, and he's one of the smartest people on the planet, easily.
Yep.
He said, I watched the media complaining about the irony of this, or what the nonsense. The election of Donald Trump will be an assault on democratic values. Now, wait a minute. So you're going to have a democratic election, and if somebody votes that way in a democratic election, that's an assault on democracy. Right, got it. And this has happened down in Brazil. I have some friends, I probably don't want to identify them, but it's exactly what happened in the last election. The candidate that won presidency, beat Bolsonaro, had been banned because he was a criminal and convicted. He could not run for office, but a left-wing Supreme Court in Brazil said, oh, we don't like that law. He can run for office. Then there were protests about the election and everybody got shut down. And now Bolsonaro sits under threat of arrest and they've taken his passport away. So like Viktor Orban said, well, come and live in Hungary. He can't leave the country because he does not have a passport. So this what happened back in 2020, 2021 here is sort of like the template that's happening a lot of places around the world. So the world is in a very, very grave, I would say, state of turmoil. 64% of the population of the world is electing governments this year.
Wow. On that note, we've got to wrap it up with John Haller. But brother, we will have you back. Let's see, where are we? We're in September. Before the election, we've got to have you back at least once before November because there's so much more to talk about, and I wish we had a lot more time. But brother, thanks for all you do.
Thank you.
Friends, keep checking out John's prophecy updates, and we will keep fighting the good fight, telling the truth and exposing the darkness, hopefully pointing you also to our blessed hope in Jesus and the Word of God. That's our stability. That's our anchor in these crazy times. God bless you, and as always, keep speaking the truth about things that matter.